Hey everybody, welcome to the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. It is episode 7. I'm your host Dave, and wherever you are, whatever you're listening from, I appreciate you being here with me today. So the Sharks seem to have figured out how to score goals. It has been an impressive week for them. They end up scoring 22 goals in the 4 games they played and only letting in 13 goals. We are really starting to see that improvement for the Sharks in terms, at least for the scoring ability. They're really clicking on all cylinders, and it's really understandable if we really look back now at why the Sharks couldn't figure it out. You know, when the season started, you had a brand new coach joining the NHL, also the team having to figure out a whole new system, and on top of that, there are a lot of new faces that joined this team, including Cody Ceci. We had Tyler Toffoli, Jake Wallman, like a lot of important players for this team that would really help the young players figure things out. On top of that, Will Smith and Celebrini as well, just to think about that as well. Just having all these players kind of join this team and figure out how to play in the NHL or in the Sharks system. It was a whole slew of things that you could say would make you look back and understand why it took so long for the Sharks to really get going. But it is looking, at least offensively, that they are starting to click. And we're going to talk about today just how the goal scoring improved bit by bit, and just talk about the role players that really have improved over time and just how they've improved. That's something we're going to look into a little bit later today. But first, I just want to talk about just how the Sharks have done over the past week. We'll obviously tear down to the 4 games the Sharks played this week, which is actually ending their 3rd week of a really busy schedule. The last 3 weeks, they played 4 games each, and they actually have the most games played at 27 in the season in the entire NHL. So while it has been a grueling 3 weeks from the Sharks traveling and coming back home, you could also say that many games help the Sharks kind of maybe click and get more chemistry, because they really have figured out the scoring. It has been just so much fun to watch, and I would say the Sharks are probably the most fun team to watch in the NHL. Night in, night out, you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to, at least you know you're going to get goals, that's for sure, whether it's against or for. But the Sharks are really fun to watch right now, and you can really see where this team is going to go, and just overall the big picture, you want to see improvement by the end of the season, and we are seeing that. Compared to game 1 to right now game 27, you're seeing this team grow, and it's really exciting to watch. So obviously we're going to, I think I already said, we're going to tear down the games a little bit later. We're also going to look into the Barracuda as well and see how they're doing, and we're obviously going to finish the episode with the scheduled win-loss segment. We'll look into the week ahead and just see what the Sharks should win or should lose based on the teams they're playing against. They're going to obviously be on the road, so I'll talk into that a little bit more. But yeah, so it's an exciting episode, full packed of stuff, so let's just get into it. All right, so as of right now, the Sharks are in 26th place in terms of points. They have 23 points, and although it looks very good, if you actually look at the big picture, they've played the most games out of any other team in the NHL right now. So really, they're actually sitting in 29th place in terms of points percentage. But it's still all positives, because the Sharks, the whole point of the season is to incrementally get better. And if you look at the first 10 games where the Sharks couldn't even get a win and they had trouble just figuring everything out, this is a very good thing to see. Like, they're slowly improving. In terms of goals for, they've been absolutely incredible. They're sitting actually ninth place with 78 goals for. Now, they are second last with goals against. That's something they obviously need to figure out. There are a few blemishes. The Sharks are not a perfect team, obviously. They obviously need to figure out how to hold the lead instead of giving up a goal immediately after, which seems to be pretty common with the Sharks. And also, just the Sharks, when they turtle, they seem to always either they're focusing on one guy, leaving another guy open, and they seem to turtle a little too much in front of their own net. But these are some things the Sharks are going to work on, and obviously this is actually more of a positive episode today. We're going to focus more on the offense rather than the defense. But one thing's for sure, the Sharks are the most exciting team in the league right now. I can say that with confidence. When you watch this team, they're fun, they're fast. You're going to see a lot of goals, maybe on both sides, but you're going to have a fun game to watch. And just to see these young stars playing so well and finally clicking, this has been like just a really fun season to watch, just from game, once they figured it out after the first 10 games, obviously. But yeah, the Sharks have been incredible. They're actually 4 points away from wildcard spot, which I wouldn't hold too highly to hope that they might make the playoffs. Like I said, this team's supposed to just get incrementally better. If they're better by game 82 compared to game 1, that's a win in my book. And right now, from game 27 to game 10 even, they have really just looked a lot better than they have in since the beginning of the season. So they've looked amazing. So this week the Sharks went 3-1. They won 2 of their home games. They only lost to Ottawa 4-3 this week, and it was only by 1 goal. So really, it wasn't that big of a loss in terms of like how the Sharks lost was kind of bad. But we'll get into that during where we break down each of the games. The Sharks won their home and home. They actually won both games against Seattle. They beat LA, who is actually in a wild card spot right now. I believe they were in the top 3 in the division. So they're a good team, and the Sharks didn't just beat them; they destroyed them 7-2. So this team is really good to watch right now. It's all about just the players that have figured it out. And we're going to break down each player that has been effective, the most effective players I think and how they've done as the season progressed. And just the 2 players that I really want to start with, and I think the 2 most important players that turned this team around were Macklin Celebrini and Timothy Liljegren. So let's start with Macklin Celebrini first. He's been the most impressive. Obviously, he came back from injury. He was injured on October 10th, where he came out from a 1 goal. He had 1 goal, 1 assist, and then he got injured for a whole month. We didn't see him pretty much until November 5th. And the Sharks were floundering there. The Sharks really only had 1 good scoring line in terms of it was Toffoli, Granlund, and Eklund that were really getting all the offense going. And then Warsofsky was kind of playing a little bit with a blender and trying to get guys going for the rest of the lines. So there was a lot of figuring things out, obviously. The defense was pretty porous. Even Jake Wallman was kind of still figuring his way out. Ceci is Cody Ceci. What can I say? He has some offensive flair. He's okay. He's a vet, but, he didn't really produce anything, and people were disappointed. People were complaining about Mario Ferrero. But anyway, so away from all that stuff, let's just go to the positives here. Macklin Celebrini, when he came back, he finally gave a little bit of scoring depth to the Sharks, that option of having at least 2 lines that can really figure things out. And even on top of that, this last week, you could say that there's 3 lines now that Warsofsky kind of rolled to get scoring going. And with that 4th line that can kind of bring energy, there's a really good way that the Sharks can just roll anything they want, and they can still get some kind of, momentum going for them, which is nice to see. So in terms of Celebrini, like I say, he came in the first game, he scored 2 points, but was gone for a month, and he would actually not score in his debut, his return back from his injury, but he would get 2 goals the next game against Minnesota. But then after that, there was just a 4-game drought where he had no points at all. He was still getting a lot of minutes, and you could see his flair. Like, he was still really great defensively. He was all over the ice. He had some good chances, just wasn't putting him away. But again, that's okay. He's a rookie, and he just came away from injury, so it's kind of expected. But since then, he's played 8 games, and he's only had 2 games where he was scoreless. He's been on fire, including 1 game against the Kings where he scored 3 points and 2 goals. And you could argue he's the best player on the ice for the Sharks, but he is definitely a difference maker when he has the puck, when he doesn't have the puck, and he's only 18 years old. He's going to get this much better. I'm really excited to see. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but I think I can see some Selkies in his future. Maybe even like some kind of a scoring title, who knows? But this is the type of guy you can build around easily. He's just an offensive dynamo, defensive dynamo. There's 1 goal he scored where he wasn't even looking in the net, and he just snipes it. He can deceive goaltenders, players, with the way he just looks to different places, and no one knows what he's going to do next. And he's just an incredible player to watch. He was obviously a difference maker. Like, when the Sharks were winless for the first 10 games, he wasn't there, and when they came back, you could say that he was a big reason why. And now that the Sharks have this depth, it's a whole different ball game for them. Now, the second player I want to point out that really made a difference is Timothy Liljegren. Now, you wouldn't think much of him, especially when he was in Toronto, where he was still seen as not defensively responsible. He was always known to have that offensive flair. Very dynamic player, very silky with his hands, and a great skater. But I guess it just didn't work out for the Leafs, and the Sharks took advantage of that when they picked him up. It was October 30th, and he played his first game against Vancouver for the Sharks. Now, he didn't really get a point for his first 5 games, but he would end up scoring his first goal against the Rangers. But during that time, you could still see when they added him to the power play, he was in the first power play immediately against Vancouver. He added what the Sharks were missing, which is that puck-moving guy who can drive the puck from the defensive zone to the offensive zone. Now we had Jake Wallman, and he is starting to really figure it out, but he didn't have the same way that Liljegren kind of plays, because even Liljegren pinches at the right times. He knows how to really jump in the play in the offensive zone. Wallman is more like, I don't know if you want to call him a power defenseman, but kind of like he wills his way from the defensive zone, and he's still a great player, but he's more just like a tough guy who can like hold the puck and he'll do different plays like that. But when it comes to Liljegren, he's a little more silky with things, like a little bit more like an Erik Karlsson, where he can kind of play the puck well, and the Sharks were really missing that. Now, the Sharks have Luca Cagnoni up in the pipeline playing for the Barracuda right now. We're hoping he's going to be the Sharks' future offensive defenseman with that ability, but a guy like Liljegren, who's 25 years old, still young, and has that ability right now, he has been everything the Sharks needed, that spark plug that gets the defensive side going for the Sharks to get so the offense can go for the Sharks. I would say these two guys were the big difference makers for the reasons why the Sharks have turned it around, at least offensively, because since then the Sharks have been absolutely killing it. And Liljegren isn't like, lighting the world on fire. He only has 5 points in 16 games, but the 3 goals he scored were very nice. And he's had a couple of droughts, 5-game droughts here and there, a few minuses because he does have those defensive blemishes, but having that offensive guy you want to have, as long as the balance is there with some defensive players, and he's really kind of figured things out with Ferraro after a few games of some awkwardness there. That duo has really, really kind of figured out, and I think he's actually helped Ferraro's game get better. Ferraro was kind of learning how to play with the new guy too. I feel like Ferraro, this is kind of a side note, but Ferraro is getting a lot of heat for the way he's been playing. I just think that his defensive partners have not been good. They put him with Jan Ruder, who's he's a little bit past his prime now, I think, and he played a little bit with Ceci, who's not really known to be a defensive stud either. Ferraro, for his career, he's usually better when he's paired with an offensive guy, and Ferraro can kind of bail him out and by playing defense a little bit. But we're seeing that chemistry work together. These two guys are really doing well together, and as a second pairing, I'm really happy to see that. So yeah, I would say Macklin Celebrini and Timothy Liljegren are the two spark plugs that really improved the scoring here. Now, I want to go with the players that have actually been consistent throughout the season, because the Sharks, while they have had trouble scoring, there are some guys that were always pretty good. And I was talking about how the first line during Macklin Celebrity's absence was William Eklund, Michael Granlund, and Tyler Toffoli, who during the first 3 games of the season at least were finding ways to score when the Sharks weren't really winning games. Granlund is a very good example. Now, he took a few games to get going after the first 3 games. He only had 1 point, but right after that, for the next 7 games, he would get. So I'm just counting the goals here. Yeah, he had 12 points in those 7 games. Like, he's been over a point a game now, but he's always been the one who's actually kind of like at least bringing excitement to the Sharks. So he at least had that kind of he started the season off at least pretty well, and since then he has not really had like more than 1 game where he has had 0 points. He's getting like a couple of points here and there, a lot of goals, a lot of nice goals, and he hasn't really stopped. He's really that offensive dynamo that the Sharks needed, and people are already talking about whether or not the Sharks should even trade him on the trade deadline, because at this point the Sharks would probably get a really good return for him. But he's the type of guy that he fits with the culture of the Sharks. He fits with the system of the Sharks. If he's willing to stay for a few years for a decent price, why not keep him? Like, he's a very valuable piece of the Sharks. Obviously, he might be more valuable for the Sharks than the magic beans that you could get for what you trade for him. So unless the Sharks, I say, get a really good haul during the trade deadline, I think the Sharks should find a way to keep him, because he has been just a really good fit with everything that's been going on, and he has not like had a really bad cold streak other than the first 3 games where you can't even say the first 3 games were even that bad. He's only had 2 games in a row where he hasn't scored, and that only happened twice. Other than that, he's pretty much been consistent. So that's the kind of guy that you want to see. So during this whole drought, he's been consistent. And another guy I want to talk about was William Eklund. Now, he has 22 points in 26 games. He's got 4 goals, 18 assists. He's been the playmaking dynamo for this whole this team. He only had maybe a couple of games. There's 1 3-game drought he had, but most of them he's been at least getting 1 or 2 points a game. And he's been incredible, like, defensively. He's almost found this new office where he sits behind the net and he waits for a guy, the Wayne Gretzky special, where he waits to pass to a guy who's open. But it's more than just like he sits there and waits. Like, he has these like deceptive backhand passes and things like that where he knows where people are. He's got really great vision on the ice. He's really figured it out this season, and you can see that he's taken that next step. He hasn't stopped at all. One thing he probably should work on maybe is getting some more goals. I think he's really focusing more on getting a nice pass going than scoring, but you can't really complain with a guy like his vision, his playmaking ability. So he has not stopped. You couldn't say he's been cold. These two guys, I would say, have been the most consistent of the Sharks. You could argue that they're probably both the best Sharks this whole season. Granlund obviously being over a point a game, but with Macklin Celebrini coming back, I think he's going to take that title very, very soon. Now, the third guy of this line that you would say Tyler Toffoli, I wanted to talk about him as well because he actually has gone the opposite of what you say like some other guys where he was scoring a lot in the beginning. He actually had 4 goals in the first 5 games, and he was really clicking with Granlund and Eklund. That line was pretty much the only line that was scoring during the times the Sharks were not winning any games, but he's kind of slowed down a little bit lately. It might be the fact that with Celebrini coming in, where Saucy has been shuffling things around, and Toffoli's been stuck in kind of the third line limbo, playing with new guys to figure things out. Toffoli's the type of guy that I think he needs to play with good players to end up doing well, but he has been incredible. Like, even though he hasn't been getting points on the board, he still is such a smart player. You can see his playmaking ability, his vision. He does a lot of the smart defensive plays as well, where there's a couple of games where the puck was turned the other way and the other team had a break, and he skated all the way and stopped a goal from happening. Like, he's still a very valuable player for the Sharks right now. It's just that, his scoring has dipped a little bit. He only has 2 points in the last 8 games. So he's not doing as incredible, but I think he'll figure it out. It's just in terms of what we're talking about today, in terms of goals, he definitely has slowed it down a bit, but I wouldn't worry too much. Another player that we want to talk about is Fabian Zetterlund, who has 19 points in 27 games. I would say he's kind of like the unsung hero right now, where in the beginning, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire either in the first 10 games with the Sharks being the slump they have been. He has only had about 5 points in those 10 games, but he is the power forward that the Sharks like to see. He'll will his way to the net. He has a really good shot. He's been an incredible player to see. He has potted those few goals that were very, very nice, and yeah, I just wanted to give him a shout out because he has been pretty decent, and I think as the core rolls along, he's definitely a top 6 forward that the Sharks need to see. And right now, him, Eklund, and Celebrini have been doing very, very well together. They look good, and even though he's not getting as many points as his other 2 line mates, he's definitely a spark plug that helps that line get going. And another guy I do want to talk about, Jake Wallman, another defenseman that's been really, really consistent for the Sharks. And it's more than just the goal scoring for him. It's like he's an all-around type of a guy that the Sharks love to have. He's tough on the defense. He definitely is. He stands up for his teammates. He stands up defensively and shuts guys down. He can score goals. He still has that offensive ability to set things up. He has a nose for the net. And even though he didn't score his first goal until his first game against the LA Kings on October 29th, he has been just a very, very important piece for the Sharks. It took a while for him to get going, but since then, he's scored a lot more points than goals, obviously. So he's got 4 goals so far, 15 assists, 19 points in 22 games. He did have that one suspension where he was out for a bit. Or it's just suspended, he was injured, so he's out for a game or 2. But he's been the most constant defenseman that the Sharks could rely on for every situation. And offensively, he's always been kind of there in terms, at least when it comes to assists. Just in the last 5 games alone, he has 7 points and 2 goals as well. He's been absolutely incredible for the Sharks, and the reason that they're at least not, I wouldn't say contending, but at least they're better than their record even shows right now, because the Sharks are honestly better than you think. The last role player that I want to get going and talk about is Will Smith. Now, people were really worried about how he's been playing the beginning of the season, where they're not understanding the fact that he's a 19-year-old kid, figuring things out, and they're kind of comparing him to Macklin Celebrini's first game. We have to understand, Celebrini is another level. He's like first overall pick, elite, like your John Tavares, Steven Stamkos, even Patrick Kane. I wouldn't compare him to like a Connor McDavid, that level, or even Austin Matthews, but he has like a very good two-way Selke feel to Celebrini, where Will Smith is a good, he can drive a line on his own, but he's more of a complementary team player, almost like in a way you look at Thornton and Marleau. Thornton was the elite guy, and Marleau was like, he's not the type of guy who can really be the only guy in the team that you kind of rely on, because you saw that before Thornton got to join the Sharks. Marleau was more of like a superstar that can like drive his own line, but he was like never like the guy. That's what Will Smith, the vibe I get from him is going to be like. He's a very talented guy. He's going to have his own line where he's going to make other players better where he plays with, but he's just not going to be like the number one guy that everyone's going to put pressure on basically. And that's, I think that with his personality, that's probably better for him. He's he looks very confident out there, but also at the same time you can see he can. Yeah, that the world weighs on his shoulders, but he definitely doesn't work well under pressure. But again, he's only 18 years old. Who knows? But the first 10 games, he had no points. He started to figure out that one goal, the 2 goals he got against Chicago, he started to kind of figure things out. But he would end up being scoreless again until like this last little streak of 3 games. But over the last 3 games, the 2 games against Seattle and the one against Ottawa, he scored like 3 goals, 1 goal each game. And all the goals he scores like have been snipes. Like his shot is absolutely incredible. Like we were sold that Will Smith was more of a playmaking guy, and you do see that ability. Even the game he played against Seattle with that nice little puck flip, but he still has like a really nice shot. And it's good to see that he's lethal on both ends, because you do want a kind of playmaker that can do both, not just a guy that's always going to pass. Because if the team knows you're always going to pass, they don't have to worry about a shot on net. They'll just block the lanes from the other players from receiving a pass. So to see that he has both those weapons on him, it's really nice to see, and he is starting to figure things out. It just took some time. I think him playing with Celebrini for a little bit did kind of give his confidence back up, but overall I think separating them is the best thing to do, so that way they can kind of spread the offense around, and we're seeing that now, because if you look at just the last few games, Celebrini scores a goal, Smith scores a goal, like it's either or. You're going to see one of both doing that, and he's just one of those guys that's turned everything around from what it used to be. He only has 11 points in 22 games, but if you really look at over the last 4 games, he's got 2, 4, 6, 7 points of those 11 points. So if you take away those, you only really had 4 points in about 18 games. So like that's huge. He's still a -7, but he's gonna figure it out, and it's just nice to see that he actually has turned things around, and it's on the up basically. I'm really confident that he's figured things out now. One of the big things you can tell that why he's turned things around is that Coach Warsofsky has let him play a back-to-back. Now, if you remember this whole season, Will Smith missed a few games because they had this thing called load management, where if there was a back-to-back game, Will Smith would play one of those games, but then he'd sit in the press box to watch the second game just to kind of like either rest or just watch how the teams play. But now he's like, well, Warsofsky at least trusts him to play back-to-backs now, and he is an effective player. During this back-to-back, he was a +2 in each game, and yeah, he's just figured it out. And like I think as he's on the up now, and this is just a small sample of what we can see in the future, and just that perspective we want to have for this season, where just improvements. Will Smith's not going to get a Calder, or he's not going to get an Art Ross this year or anything like that. But as long as he's better, Will Smith game 1 is not as good as Will Smith game 27, and Will Smith game 82 is way better than Will Smith game 87. It's a win. We want to see him improve and have a great offseason and even get better for next year. And I'm very confident we're going to see that. So yeah, it's been really, really good. So I would say these are probably the 8 players that are the most effective players that really helped the Sharks turn their offense around. Some of them were consistent throughout the whole season, like Granlund and Eklund. Some of them took a while to figure things out, like Wallman and Will Smith. And some have just been like, the spark plugs that the Sharks were missing, and then when they joined, like Macklin Celebrini when he was injured, and when Timothy Liljegren was acquired from the Toronto Maple Leafs, they helped the Sharks. All these things put together have been the reason why we've seen the Sharks kind of figure things out. And the one thing I want to finish off with this Sharks goal scoring segment, I broke down the games for the Sharks. They played 27 games, so I broke them down to 3 segments, and just wanted to break down like how their record was and what their goal scoring was. So for the first 9 games, the Sharks were 0-7-2. This was during their struggles when things were really bad, and it just looked like it was going to be a repeat of the last season. Although, just to go deeper into that, you could tell that the Sharks were not the team they were the year before. They were always in the games. They weren't giving up like they were last year, but they weren't winning the games. Obviously, again, the coaching, new faces, everyone was trying to figure things out, so I wouldn't put anything on them. So yeah, they're 0-7-2 those first 9 games. They only managed to score 18 goals, and they allowed 39 goals against. Again, not the focus isn't the goals against, because that's not the most important thing, but they really did have trouble scoring those games. It's really mostly Granlund and that Toffoli and Eklund line, but they did have that trouble. Now, from games 10 to 18, the middle 9 games, they had a winning record of 5-3-1, which is and improvement, right? Macklin Celebrini's back. They're starting to kind of figure things out. Their goals for 24 goals for and 24 goals against. So they're 50-50 right there. They scored 6 more goals during that 9-game stretch. So they're starting to figure things out. They're winning games. This is a positive for that. And now finally their last 9 games. Their record is 4-3-2. They've scored 35 goals and allowed 33 goals. So even though they are scoring more, they did allow a few more goals against. But the goal scoring is what really, really stands them out. It's like they've been really, really incredible with that. And yeah, it looks like they're just on the up from that. And it just looks really, really good for those Sharks there. And the Sharks scoring a lot of goals is a good thing. And at least whether or not they're winning the games, all the games, at least they're really fun to watch. And this year I really, really want to push people to try and watch all these games because you want to see these Sharks grow, and this is the time to do it where they're actually on the up now. You're not going to see, I don't think we're going to see another, 8-game winless streak. And we're going to see the Sharks putting a lot of effort. They're always in on each game, and they're at least fun to watch. I mean, Celebrini is just an incredible player. Will Smith, now that he's figured it out, is just another, spark plug of offense. And yeah, Jake Wallman, Timothy Liljegren, there's a lot of defense that can score too. And even Mario Ferrero's kind of got the monkey off his back. He's got 2 goals in the last 3 games when he had 0 goals completely. So I really want to just say, if you're not watching the Sharks right now, you got it, because they have turned everything around. So that's pretty much the segment. That's when I talk about the Sharks goal scoring and who's helped them figure things out and the big players that have changed it. So let's go tear into the games. All right, let's start off with the first game of the week on Monday night. LA visiting San Jose Sharks. It would be Askarov's second start for the Sharks and Nico Sturm's return from injury. Now, he was only gone for a couple of games, but he already would make an impact within the first 2 minutes of the game. So Askarov actually started this play from behind his net, and it's one of those plays where he actually did benefit from playing the stick compared to his first game where he let that goal in. He made a nice little backhand pass to Ferrero. Ferrero would bomb it all the way to Nico Sturm, who got a breakaway all the way and score over Riddick's pad, or over his blocker. And that would be 1-0 the Sharks within the first 2 minutes of the game. Nice to see Sturm get that goal because, he's just a hardworking guy. He's been a great player, just slotting into this 3rd or 4th line as a center. Just a good, consistent dude who works hard, and nice to see him score that kind of a goal. But the first period, basically, the Sharks would play low-event hockey. It was nice to see, considering the Kings are a very good team. They're in the wild card right now, and to see the Sharks kind of hold up against them was a good thing to see. But the Sharks, after the first period, the Sharks would go back to their old ways. Both goals the Kings would score in the beginning of the second period would be kind of just the typical Sharks problems, where the defense would cover one guy. In this case, Adrian Kempe, and both goals would be covered by 2 Sharks, leaving Brent Clark open for the first goal and Angie Kopitar open for the second goal. Both different kinds of goals, but still the problem where the Sharks leave that guy open and Kempe would pass to both Clark and Kopitar for each goal, and they would score the goals. It wasn't a very good thing. The Sharks got to figure out how to fix that problem, but that wasn't very good. But at least Zetterlund would respond halfway through the period. He did a little wraparound move around, get to Riddick, and Anderson tried to block the net from that wraparound. It would bounce off his leg and then go into the net, and they would make it 2-2. So at least the Sharks would tie it up, and even though LA probably had a better second period overall, the Sharks managed to leave that period with a tie. Now the third period is where everything completely changed. Celebrini started the scoring in the first minute, and it was just an unbelievably sick goal. He broke into the offensive zone all the way from the walls, just on the left side. He's looking away from the net. He's not even looking at Riddick. He's looking for a pass, and then he immediately just quickly looks at the net and snipes it perfectly top corner over the shoulder of Riddick, far side. It was an absolute beauty, and just things you can see what he's going to be in the future. His skill is just unprecedented. He's the real deal, and he would make it 3-2 for the Sharks, and it would just begin the onslaught. So after that, Timothy Liljegren would score, and Smith would skate behind the net, and it was just a nice pass from Smith, a little bit of patience, which was nice to see from a young rookie kind of do that. Liljegren would punch up in the play, push up a little bit, and score, and it was a nice bomb that went in the net, and it would be 4-2 Sharks. And then right after that, there'd be another power play, and Celebrini would get his sixth of the season. It was a pass from Eklund to Celebrini on the right hash marks, and basically Eklund had an open net to go for. Celebrini had the open net to shoot at with Eklund's amazing vision and passing, and it was just an amazing goal. It was a power play goal the Sharks needed. So Wenberg would score his goal, making it 6-2, and it was off the power play as well. Jake Wallman would bomb it from the point, and Wenberg would tip it just a little bit, and it would just be enough to fool Riddick and go in, and that would make it 6-2, which is nice. And the last goal, the one that made it 7-2, was probably my favorite one, to be honest, because Luke Cunnin has been getting a lot of garbage, him and Klim Kostin as well. But they've been, there's been a point this season where people were complaining about how they're kind of offensive holes. But Cunnin is a hard worker, and he's just like Nico Sturm. He's just the type of guy that he works really hard to get what he earns. And in this case, he was driving towards the net. 3 LA guys are covering him, and he manages to fumble the puck around and still maintain possession. Wrists it over Riddick, makes it 7-2 San Jose. It was just an incredible goal, and just like a sign of just how you don't give up on the play. You keep going what you have to do, even if there's guys on you. Keep pushing forward, keep getting that puck on net, and good things are going to happen. And the Sharks end up winning 7-2 against LA. A big, big win. Even though the Kings outshot them 24-21, they won the faceoff zone 55% to 45%. And the Sharks really took advantage of the power plays there as well. They were 2 for 6 on the power play. The Kings were 0 for 2. But the Sharks just lighting it up offensively. They didn't really play a completely good game, the whole full 60, but the first period they were great, and in the third period they're just offensively unbelievable. They were still out-hit the Kings 20-18. They blocked the shots, which always with the Sharks we're going to see, especially with a team with Mario Ferraro on the team, blocking a lot of shots. They had fewer giveaways than the Kings, which is nice to see. The Kings had 20 and the Sharks had 16. And yeah, the Sharks actually lead the series against the Kings right now 2-1. They won the first game against the Kings October 24th. The Kings won the first game 3-2 October 24th. The Sharks would win October 29th 4-2, and then now with a decisive victory of 7-2, the Sharks leading 2-1 is something I didn't expect to see against the Kings that are actually a pretty decent team. And yeah, the next time they'll see each other is on March 30th. All right, let's get into Game 2 of the week. On Wednesday night, Ottawa would be visiting San Jose. Granlund was out with an injury. It wasn't a big deal. It was just a day-to-day kind of a thing, so we missed that game. The Sharks definitely missed him because he's just such an offensive stud, just an all-around stud to have on your team. Giovanni Smith would be called up to play for the depth role. And, the Sharks ended up losing this game in a weird way. So the Sharks actually outplayed the Senators for most of the game. I wouldn't say it was a complete 60-minute game, but they managed to get 39 shots on net while the Senators only had 11. They held the Senators down to 11 shots and still lost the game. And all the goals that the Sharks let in would be due to mental mistakes. Otherwise, the Sharks were more dominant in the game. You could even say Blackwood didn't have probably his worst game of the season, but he would make up for it later this week. But yeah, the Sharks just it just reminded me actually of a game that happened about 10 years ago where the Sharks had 59 shots on goal against the Edmonton Oilers, and this was the time when the Edmonton Oilers were a really bad team. And Ben Scrivens, who wasn't like a goalie that was lighting the world on fire either, he stopped 59 shots, and I think it set an NHL record for the Edmonton Oilers at the time, and maybe it still stands. The Edmonton would win 3-0 as the Sharks, even though the Sharks had 59 shots on goal. So it kind of reminded me of that game a bit, minus the fact that the Sharks aren't a wagon like they were back in the day. But yeah, it just goes to show you with a good goaltending, like you can have crazy upsets like that, and that's what I love about hockey. That you can never really predict who's going to win, and anything can happen. And if there's a really good goalie, they can really shut down even the best teams. And in this case, the Sharks aren't really the best team, but it kind of was just that kind of a feel to it. So, anyways, going into the game here, Gaudette would score the first goal of the game in 4 minutes into the game from Stützle to Tkachuk, and this is something, again, the Sharks were playing very well. They're getting a lot of shots on net, playing good, but then right at this point, Stützle would join the rush unimposed. No one tried to stop him, and Gaudette's standing right in front of Blackwood. No one's trying to push him out of the way, and he would just score point blank in front of Blackwood, his 10th of the season there. And then a little bit after that, Josh Norris would get his 9th of the season, kind of giving his confidence back up on the power play. And there's nothing you can do about that. The Sharks having two goals down, even though they're playing better. But the thing about this team is that they're not the type of team that gets deflated from that. They do not give up, and that's something you could see because in the second period, about 9 minutes in, so halfway through the second period, Mario Ferrero finally gets the monkey off his back, gets the first goal of the season, a beautiful pass from Will Smith, cross ice. It's beautiful to see that, not only has a great shot, but the passing ability that we've been kind of sold on about him is kind of showing with this goal. He's looking on net, completely deceiving everybody, and just passes it to Mario Ferrero, who kind of joins the rush and runs up and has an open net to shoot from. And it's just nice to see because, Mario Ferrero got a lot of heat this season. To get that monkey off his back is very nice to see. And to see Will Smith just looking confident out there, doing his deceptive plays, just absolutely awesome to see. It would end up being 2-1 for Ottawa right there. And with the Sharks out shooting, now playing in the Senators, things were really looking optimistic for the Sharks in this game. But about 6 minutes later, Ottawa would score again. Tyler Clevin, his first of the season. Nothing much to say about that one. Just a goal that the Sharks turning it over in the neutral zone. The Sharks make another big mistake. And then Clevin kind of just has a good shot on net, and it would go in. Nothing could do. Maybe Blackwood wishes he had that one back. But what can you do? It's 3-1 Ottawa at that point. The third period, things kind of turned it around a bit. Celebrini would end up getting another goal, his 7th goal of the season, 4 minutes into that period. And it was from William Eklund. And, just a great play. Celebrini, what can I say about him? He's always scoring these amazing goals. And Eklund making amazing plays. Makes it 3-2. And about 8 minutes after that, on the power play, Will Smith would hit his third. Absolute bomb top corner right in front of Allmark. He would skate up really fast. Zetterlund would make a nice pass to Smith, and he would just snipe it. Liljegren would get his first assist of the season. And, it would be 3-3 tied. And with this game, you would think, okay, the Sharks have got to have this in the bag. Ottawa has less than 10 shots on net. The Sharks have over 30 shots on net. This is going to be going the Sharks' way. Unfortunately, Gaudette would score, making it 4-3 near the end of the period. But just before that, I want to talk about Cunnin, who actually had a chance to put it away. He had a wide open net, and the puck was in the air, and he tried to bounce it off his stick and bounce it in, but unluckily it just kind of hit the wrong part and just flopped away. But it was a really good chance, and I liked the effort he had there just to try and get it on the net, but unfortunately it would miss, and then Gaudette would score his 11th, he's having a pretty good season for Ottawa. But in 5 minutes left in the game, he would make it 4-3 Ottawa. The Sharks could not be able to solve Allmark, and they end up losing this game 4-3. The shots on net, like I brought it before, 39 for the Sharks, 11 for Ottawa. Ottawa was better on the face-off circle, 55.1% to 44.9%. Both teams managed to score a goal on 2 power plays each. Power play chances, they're both 50% on the power play. And the hits are about equal as well, 30 for Ottawa to 29 for the Sharks. The Sharks had a lot more giveaways, 19-13, and the crazy thing is what's not so crazy based on the shots, but Ottawa actually had 24 blocked shots and Sharks only had 6. So on the scoreboard, it looks very deceptive, but the Sharks really were more dominant. It's just those big mistakes the Sharks made, Ottawa team seemed to capitalize on, and Allmark, who is having kind of not a great season so far for the Senators, showing why the Senators did take a big gamble on him by paying him what they did, or trading for him, sorry, and just why he's such an important guy and why he's still a very good player. And Ottawa ends up winning this game, and the Sharks are going to have to lick their wounds and move on to their next opponent in Seattle. And now for the third game of the week, the Sharks would play the Seattle Kraken in a home-and-home series. So this game on Friday was an afternoon matinee game because of the Thanksgiving weekend. So the Sharks would be at home here, and they would go to Seattle on Saturday night. And what a game this was. If you like goals, you like seeing just no goal, every goalie cry at the end and coaches going crazy, this was the game to watch. 13 goals scored between both teams. The Sharks showed their offensive ability here. Seattle managed to also show their offensive ability. And it was just, it wasn't a pretty game for the Sharks, but they ended up getting it done. The Seattle Kraken would actually end up out-shooting the Sharks 31-27. But it's just all about the goals that went in that were very nice. So the first goal that was scored was by Teal Liljegren. He would make it 1-0 2 minutes in. It was just a pretty play from Toffoli, and you're starting to see kind of a pattern where the Sharks are really good at setting up plays from behind the net. No one really seems to impose whether it's Toffoli or Eklund or even Celebrini or Smith. There's guys that are back there that are finding guys that are coming into the slot and just making a clean pass, usually to a defenseman. And Liljegren will get his 3rd goal of the season from a beautiful Toffoli pass, like I said. But a minute later, Seattle would respond. And this is something the Sharks still got to figure out. They seem to always give up a goal immediately after scoring. They can't seem to hold it down and try to keep just to keep their defensive game up. Not something I want to worry about right now because they're figuring everything out. The fact that they figure out the goal scoring is a good thing, but just something that they really got to work on because it just happened again and again and again. So Bjorkstrand would make it 1-1, but Klim Kostin would end up making it 2-1 just a little bit after, near the end of the period after that, where it was just a nice, just gritty play. Everyone's in the corner fighting for it. So I think Zerlin would have a shot on net, and Klim Kostin would catch the rebound and just hit the top corner with kind of an open net. He willed his way in there. He got his first of the season. And it's just nice to see because him and Cunningham were getting a lot of garbage for how they've been playing the last few games about a week ago. And it's just nice to see that his hard work is finally kind of paying off. I don't expect him to be getting like a 30, 40 goal season, but he's the type of guy, he'll stand up for his team. He's a tough customer. He can also score some goals sometimes when he wants to. He'll will his way to the net, and it's just nice to see him get that monkey off his back and get his first for the Sharks. So yeah, it would end up being 2-1 for San Jose at this point, but immediately after that, yet again, probably not even a minute in, it was about 33 seconds later, Chandler Stevenson would end up scoring. Seattle would win the faceoff, and then he would just dangle through Vanacek and score in the net. So that's the second goal, again, this game, where the Sharks would immediately give it up right after scoring, deflating their momentum completely. And that's just something the Sharks really need to work on here, just moving forward, maybe next season or whatever, just throughout the season even, just to stop this from happening. And right after that, it's with less than a minute to go in the second period, the first period, Shane Wright would get his goal, making it 3-2 Seattle, and this would just be kind of a funky bounce from a slap shot from the point that would hit the boards, go around the net to the other side, and Shane Wright would just have an open net as Vanacek kind of is on the other side, not knowing where the puck is. So it would just be kind of an unlucky bounce. I wouldn't put this on the Sharks at all, and Seattle would actually get their karma back afterwards. So in the next game, actually. So we'll talk about that in the next game. But yeah, at this point, it's 3-2 Seattle at the end of the first. And it's a sign of things to come because this game was absolutely wild. 5 goals scored in one period. So in the second period, Will Smith would end up getting his 4th of the season. It was a beautiful snipe from the hash marks. Just this kid I didn't know he had such a good shot. It's so underrated, and they talked about it throughout the whole season. But I remember when the Sharks got Smith, it was all about his passing play, and seeing him in the preseason, just the way he kind of threads the needle between different players, between the legs, and makes it hit the other person's tape, their stick. Just it's incredible to see, but the way he snipes the shot, this is just amazing to see too. So yeah, he would make it 3-3 and tie it up. But then Wallman would get a penalty right after with a high stick. It was a 4-minute penalty because the Seattle guy was bleeding. But Vanacek would hold the Sharks down for a bit, make some nice saves. But Shane Wright, getting the momentum from the last goal at the end of the last period, would score from a Chandler Stevenson pass right across, backdoor, and he had a wide open net to score from a one-timer, and nothing to do about that. But Wallman would make up for that penalty he drew a while ago. He got into the penalty box where he would get a slap shot bomb where he skated onside and just bombed it into the net from Eklund and Celebrini. And it started with Celebrini winning a puck battle, and he got into the Seattle zone with the puck, and then he set up the whole play from there, and Wallman just bombing it, getting his 3rd of the season, and that would end up making it 4-4, and we are just in a rally this game. You could see that this is going to be a crazy type of a game. Mikael Granlund, coming back from his injury the game before against Ottawa, he would get his 10th of the season, and it was just Kostin winning the puck. He gives it to Granlund, and Granlund would snipe it past Grubauer. And again, this is Klim Kostin kind of getting more confidence, which is nice to see. And just this third line of Granlund, Kostin, and Smith, seeing how they kind of click together was really nice to see as well. And after that, after it's 5-4 San Jose, Celebrini would make it 6-4 with an absolute snipe. The Sharks forced a turnover, and Zellern would cross the ice and get onside and just passes Celebrini. Celebrini would snipe it, making it 6-4 at this point, and it looking really, really good. But at the end of the period, Yanni Gourde would end up making it 6-5. The Sharks are at least scoring in bunches, so at least they're not, they're usually giving the goal away, but at least this point they learned to score a bunch of goals before letting in the other one right away. So at least they would end the period with a 6-5 lead, and all bets were off who could win this game because just the goals kept going in. And in the third period, about halfway through, a big deal here. Cardwell would get his first career NHL goal. Great to see because just how he's been playing in the AHL. He's just a hardworking guy. I call him the Zach Hyman of the Sharks. He's just one of those guys that does all the right things. He works hard. He stands up for himself against other players, even in the NHL. And he just scored a nice little wrister that kind of flops over Grubauer's hand, and it goes in the net. Doesn't matter how it gets in. It's just how he got the goal. It's just that he got the goal, and that was so nice to see. And yeah, so now it's 7-5 San Jose, and things just haven't stopped from there. So right after that, Costin will get a fight with Borgen. It looked like something happened on that play, and Borgen wanted to fight somebody else, but Costin said, no, you're going to fight me. So Costin having a really, really good game. He would get a penalty, obviously, on top of the fight. It was a 2-minute penalty for roughing, so but San Jose would kill it, so it really doesn't matter. And then a little bit after that, Jake Wallman would get the empty net goal. He would just bomb it from the San Jose zone, making it 8-5. It was just a nice, perfectly placed shot, and it would go in the net. And the Sharks would end up winning that game, 8-5, like I said. And it was just an incredible, incredible game for them. The shots were 31-27 for Seattle, but Sharks would actually beat them in the faceoff off, 55-44%. And the block shots would actually be on Seattle's favor, 15-13. Seattle had more giveaways, 18-17 for the Sharks, 7-17, and they actually had more takeaways as well, 7-4. But the Sharks managed to outscore their problems in this one, and this was just a really fun matinee game to watch. If you're eating your Thanksgiving dinner and you're watching this, you're having a good time. There's no question about that. Yeah, the Sharks, they don't care how you do it, you do it, and the Sharks would end up being Seattle at home, and they would end up facing them again the next night in Seattle's building. But before we get on to that game, there's just a few notes that I wanted to point out because there's some really cool things that happened in this game. First off, the biggest, most exciting one, Klim Kostin got a Gordie Howe hat trick in this game. He had a goal, an assist, and he fought Borgen in the third, meaning that would be the 21st one in Sharks franchise history. Vanecek would actually get his third win of the season here, which, it's not much, but at least he's getting some wins starting to pile on here for him, which is nice to see. Also, this is the first Sharks 8-goal game since October 9th, 2018. So it's been a long time, obviously, since the Sharks have been good, but it's nice to see that the Sharks are kind of clicking with their scoring. And also in terms of scoring goals, it's the third. It hasn't happened since the mid-90s where the Sharks scored 7 goals within a 3-game span. So that's another cool thing to see. Obviously, the new NHL, there's a lot more goals in this kind of era of hockey, but to see the Sharks figure that kind of things out with a team that's supposed to be a bottom feeder this year, very cool to see. And another thing is it was Cardwell's first career goal. He's going to remember that one for the rest of his life, obviously. He scored. It was kind of, again, a flub. It's not how you do it, but it's how many, right? So he would score over, Grubauer's hand and kind of flip over there awkwardly, but it counts. And it was just a fun game to watch, to see, and all these nice little big important things happen in this game. So the final game of the week and the final game of the back-to-back against Seattle, Sharks would be in Seattle for Saturday night. And the first thing to note is it was Smith's first back-to-back games he would play this season. No load management, as Warsofsky liked to call it, which is a testament to show how Will Smith has really gotten more confident. It looks a lot better out there, that the coach is confident enough that he could play these back-to-backs now without being too overwhelmed. Celebrini, I would say, led the team in the ice with the offense and the defense, just with his plays. He was absolutely incredible. Just to point out the beginning of the game, after the Sharks would get a power play, but Seattle would kill it, Celebrini had this really nice play where he was slippery off a couple of Seattle players, and with the rush, he would go onside and make a nice slick draw pass to Wenberg. Wenberg would get a shot on goal, but nothing would come of it. But just wanted to point out how Celebrini is capable of turning nothing plays into some amazing stuff. So that's one thing I wanted to point out there. The first half of the game was really all Sharks. They were riding the confidence of the game before. The first goal of the game would have been from Mario Ferraro, from Mikhail Granlund and Timothy Liljegren. Liljegren was really the catalyst of this play, getting the play onside and getting to Granlund. Lots of traffic in front, and Ferraro would just snipe it top corner. Descartes couldn't see it at all, so that would be Ferrero's second goal in 3 games, and it's nice to see him get the monkey off his back. And him and Liljegren really it goes to show you how well they work together there. So it was nice to see. That would be the only goal for that period, though. But the Sharks were playing with fire in the first period. They were all over Seattle, making great plays, making great chances. Blackwood didn't need to make too many saves, but when he did, he'd stand on his head, which is really nice to see. And in the second period, Cunnin would actually, sorry, at the end of the first period, Cunnin would hold Yanni Gourde with 11 seconds left, so Seattle would start the second period on a power play. Luckily, they wouldn't do anything with it, but Cunnin would come out of the box and immediately score. So Dellandrea gets onside, makes a beautiful pass to Cunnin. He bombs it, it's his, I believe it was his second of the season there, and he would make, it's his sixth of the season actually. He's doing very good. He would make it 2-0 for the Sharks. And yeah, the Sharks at this point are just rolling. They're outplaying Seattle in all facets of the game. And a little bit after that, Cody Ceci would score, and this is the karma I was talking about from the last game, that the Sharks would get back on Seattle. If you remember, Shane Wright would get a goal based off a point shot that would go behind the net and come off the other side, and the goalie would be able to see it, and Wright had a wide open net. And in this case, the same thing happened for the Sharks, where Celebrini would bomb it from the point. It would bounce behind the boards behind the net and hit the other side. Ceci had a wide open net. Decord had no idea where it was. And Ceci would score his first goal in over, I don't remember how many games, but Randy Hahn was saying it was a very long time, which is known for Cody Ceci. He's not known for scoring. It was nice to see him get his first for the Sharks. It would be 3-0 Sharks. And then a little less than a minute later, Will Smith would score on a beautiful feed from Granlund. It was a 2-on-1, and Granlund would just sauce it over to Smith because the defenseman went down on the ice to try and stop the pass from happening. But it was useless for him to do that because he still sauced it over to Will Smith. Will Smith would snipe it upstairs, making it 4-0. Now this is where the momentum would kind of change. The Sharks would be kind of on their heels for the rest of the game. They were dominant to this point, but Seattle would kind of wake up and decide to figure something out. And as always, Sharks scoring a goal. At least they scored 4 to stop this from happening. The Seattle Kraken would respond within less than a minute. Jaden Schwartz would end up scoring it, and just typical thing for the Sharks, always giving up a goal right after. But the sleeping beast was awakened, and it was all Seattle after that. After this point, for the rest of the game, really the Sharks would have barely any chances on the Seattle zone. There was a couple of cool chances Celebrini set up, but really it was all Seattle, and they were on their heels. The Sharks were on their heels trying to stop Seattle on their zone, trying to stop things from happening. But in the third period, Jared McCann would score 6 minutes in, and that would be making it 4-2. But yeah, he was sniping top corner. The Sharks were just trying to do everything they could to clear the zone. There was one play after that goal where Ferraro had a bad clear, just a sloppy play because everyone was tired on the Sharks side. Zetterlund couldn't help get the puck either, where it looked like there were people battling for the puck and it popped out a little bit, and Zetterlund, instead of going to get the puck, he tried to skate up to try and get a break by himself instead of trying to do something, and it's a 4-2 game. That's the type of play you really want to help your team and just try and get the possession of the puck and not think about scoring the goal, because you're winning anyway. You just want to prevent Seattle from getting any kind of goal from there. And that's something I just want to point out, because Zetterlund should have done better in that play. And I hope the coach kind of pointed that out to him, that he shouldn't have been doing that. But Celebrini, the stud defensively and offensively, would end up clearing the puck, getting the puck, and great read picking a pass off. It was a one-timer pass, and then he would end up getting possession and clearing it out. Near about a couple of minutes out, the end of the period, Seattle would pull the cord, making it 6-on-5 on the ice for Seattle, and Beniers, with 7 seconds left, would score a goal, but it would not count. What happened was Yanni Gourde was in front of Blackwood. His butt was kind of touching Blackwood's face, and it wasn't like egregious or anything like that, but it was enough that Blackwood couldn't move his mask, and immediately after the goal goes in. So it wasn't that the Sharks coaches actually called this. It was actually the situation room in Toronto that said this should be called off. There was about a 2 or 3 minute conversation with the refs on the ice, and they decided to call off the goal, which would help the Sharks just keep that momentum. Sharks end up winning 4-2 against Seattle, taking the home and home, winning both games, which is unbelievable, even though you could argue they really didn't deserve this one as much, but Blackwood did bail them out with a lot of good chances. There was a really nice pad save near the end that he made there. And just the Sharks still need to learn how to hold on to a lead and be more aggressive, to have that killer mentality. Not a big deal because they're a young team. They're still figuring things out. At least they figured out the scoring. That's one positive. This week they've scored a lot of goals, but they still have to know how to not allow a goal right after, which is something that we've been saying forever this whole season, and be just like not like a hold on to lead, not like turtle in and when they're defensive and just kind of cover the wrong guy, focus on the wrong guy. They need to be able to cover man to man each guy that's open and stop them from getting any good plays happening. But yeah, other than that, there's some positives. Like Celebrini, obviously, he's the best player. He's going to be the best player on this team very soon. He stood out defensively. He made the right plays. He started setting up some great plays offensively as well, even though the Sharks didn't have much of that in the second half. The first half was great. The Sharks, they just couldn't figure out how to do that again. Overall, in the terms of the shots on goal, Seattle would get 38-23. It was a wild one for the Seattle. Like, they are probably just as frustrated as the Sharks were on Wednesday against Ottawa, not being able to put it past Blackwood. But yeah, the face-offs were pretty much 50-50. 50.9 for the Sharks, 49.1 for Seattle. There wasn't very many penalties. No one would score on the power play, so they were both very disciplined there. Seattle would out-hit the Sharks 21-11. The Sharks, going back to their old ways of blocking a lot of shots, they were blocked 21-13 against Seattle, and the giveaways were 16 to Seattle to 14 for the Sharks. The takeaways, the Sharks would edge that 3-2. And yeah, so the series now, the Sharks lead 2-0 based on this home and home. They will see Seattle again on January 30th in Seattle. And just this one was a crazy one. The Sharks kind of got away with this one, but at least they came away with 2 points. And it's just nice to see that the Sharks are finally at least putting the goals in and outscoring their problems a little bit. Other things they got to work on, but this is still a very positive game for the Sharks. Now, Warsofsky was interviewed after the game, and he was just asked like about how the team has been playing and how this lately how they've been doing. He just says that good team finding ways to win, and we're doing that. Kind of an empty statement in a way because they are finding ways to win, but they also they're getting a little bit lucky with like good goaltending. But that's just he's not wrong there. Teams do still figure things out. But also he said that we want to be a team that can play 4 lines, short and sweet shifts. So he wants high energy. These lines to go out for like at least 30 to 45 seconds, play as hard as they can, and then switch right off the bat. And we are seeing that. Like once Celebrini came back early in November, you could see that Warsofsky kind of slot in 3 good scoring lines, and that 4th energy line was really something that the Sharks really was good with. So I think it was Grunstrom, Costin, and I don't want to say Cunnin. But it was a really good 4th line for a while, and now they're kind of rotating some other guys with Sturm kind of taking the 4th line. But you could see that there's that 4th line that really draws a lot of energy, and then the other 3 are just finding ways to score good goals. Smith is slotting in nicely as a winger there next to Granlund as a third line going there. Wenberg, I can see why he's on the second line because he's really good at winning faceoffs, especially in the offensive end. So just the balance there is amazing, and Celebrini, Eklund, and Zetterlund have been absolutely incredible together. I mean, those guys have really figured it out as well. And, Toffoli kind of just slotting in wherever because he's a good vet. It's just been a really good good depth, deep team. And, yeah, we'll see what they can do next week based on how they've been playing this week. Hopefully they can roll out this confidence when they continue their road games, which we'll talk about ahead of this podcast. All right, let's take a quick dive into the Barracuda to see how well they've been doing. And over the last week, they played 3 games, and they're actually on a 3-game winning streak. They won in a shootout against the Toronto Marlies on Sunday when they're in Toronto, and then they were visiting Abbotsford on Friday and on Saturday. They won their first game against Abbotsford Friday at 5-3, and the second one 7-4. And it's good to see that the Baby Sharks are scoring a lot of goals, just like their big brothers up in the NHL. They know how to rally and win, but at least they're having that confidence to score, and they're not back to being, I would say they're not wagon status, but they're looking pretty good. They jumped up 2 spots to second place in the Pacific. The Calgary Wranglers just look like they're not really moving anywhere. They're going to be probably the one stopgap for the Barracuda to maybe challenge for a Calder Cup for sure, but that's something we'll see during the, way down the road later in the season. But they have the Barracuda have a 6.667 save percentage, given the second place. They're 12-6 in the league right now, and they're looking pretty good. The top scorers are Colin Graff. He hasn't really moved since this whole season. He's been an absolute stud for this team. He has 5 goals and 17 assists for 22 points, over a point a game in 18 games. Podorowski is second place with 19 points in 18 games. He actually scored the game-winning shootout goal for the Barracuda on Sunday against the Marlies. And Luca Cagnoni, who continues to be just an offensive spark plug for the San Jose Barracuda. He has 7 goals, 11 assists, and 18 points. He actually scored 2 goals against the Abbotsford Canucks last night. He's just been an amazing offensive spark plug. He actually put up a point for the Daniel Gushin goal against the Marlies on Sunday as well. It's this amazing to see this guy move up, and maybe in a couple of years, if the Sharks manage to keep Liljegren, having him and Cagnoni as the 1-2 punch is going to be absolutely fun to see for the Sharks down the road. I have a lot of high hopes for Luca Cagnoni and Colin Graf as well. So looking ahead to the games in December, they're actually going to have 2 games between our next podcast and this one. So they're going to play the San Diego Gulls on Wednesday and then the Coachella Valley Firebirds on Saturday. And those would be very good games. The good revenge game for Coachella. They probably want to make up a game for the last one the Barracuda beat them at. So this is just a bunch of people on their division that they should be winning to try and climb up the standings. But the Barracuda are back to kind of getting their confidence. I don't want to use the W word anymore because I don't want to jinx them anymore, but they are looking a lot better than before. Their top scorers are leading the way with their getting more points, and we'll have to see how well they do. But yeah, the Barracuda are looking pretty solid right now with Askarov getting called back down or sent back down from the NHL. He'll probably bring back a lot more stability for this team. So that'll be nice to see. Him and Romanov have been very good behind the pipes, but give a good shout out to Gabriel Carrier, who ended up getting a 31 save win against the Marlies last week in the shootout win. He made 32 shots for the Marlies, and he ended up winning that game for them. So just want to give him a good shout out because he had a hell of a game too. All right, we're in the last segment of this podcast, today's episode. It's called the scheduled win-loss segment. So basically how it works is I'll look at the games ahead of the week that the Sharks are going to play and try and figure out if they're going to win or lose that game. So far, I've not been very good at predicting my games right, but at least the Sharks are winning, so who really cares? So the way it works is the mentality of this kind of segment is the way coaches were to look at games and schedules, where if there's a back-to-back or there's a good team you're playing against or maybe there's some players missing, a coach will look at a game and say, okay, we're meant to win this game. We're meant to lose this game. And if it's like a road trip or a group of games that they're looking at, they'll say, we should at least get 3 points in this group of games. We should get this many points, and then even if the coach is wrong about the specific game, they should consider it like a win or a loss anyway, if they got the result they wanted, basically. So in this case, the Sharks, the advantage they have is they're finally finishing a grueling 3 weeks where they played 12 games. So each week they played 4 games a week, and I can't even imagine that must be so exhausting because most teams you'll see play 3 games a week, the odd 4-game week here and there, but to have 3 in a row is pretty wild. In the Sharks' case, I like to think that maybe that it helped them build their chemistry and figure things out a little bit more because of all the new stuff going on at the beginning of the season with the coaching and everything we talked about. But yeah, so this is the first time in about 4 weeks the Sharks are only playing 3 games. They are all on the road, but we should see some good things happen. They're all against good teams though, so it's going to be hard for me to predict these ones, to be honest. So their first game on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific will be against the Washington Capitals. They are without their goal-scoring star, Alex Ovechkin. He's still injured with a broken leg, but they still have a lot of dynamic offensive options to replace that. Connor McMichael, for example, has 14 goals in 24 games, and it's just 1 goal less than Ovechkin, who has 15 goals in 18 games. Obviously, Ovechkin's got the better goals per game output, but McMichael's still playing very, very good. Washington is first place in their division with 17 wins, 6 losses, and 1 overtime loss at 35 points. They have 101 goals for, obviously leading the way with Alex Ovechkin. Dylan Strome also is finding this new level. Either he's having a career year or he's just figured it out to be a really good offensive guy, because even without Ovechkin, he still has 34 points in 24 games. He has more assists in games played, which is nuts. He has 26 assists in 24 games played as well. And yeah, he's just been a really good... I think the nickname they have for him is Dylan Backstrom, like Nick Backstrom back in the day when he was the guy. So he's just replaced Backstrom as the new offensive stud. And yeah, this is going to be a very tough game for the Sharks. The Sharks will probably have to outscore their problems if they want to win this game. Another player to note for this team is Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was acquired from the LA Kings. He has 16 points in 24 games, which is not too bad considering how good Strome is playing as a first-line center. Having PLD as a second-line center is not bad for the Capitals at all. So with the Sharks having a couple of days off and going into Washington, I'm going to try and predict the Sharks will win this one. They're going to outscore their problems Washington does not have Ovechkin out there, so maybe that'll be a nice little prevention for the Sharks losing this game. I'm going to predict a win just because the Sharks are rolling right now and they don't have to worry about Ovechkin. I'm going to say W for this one. So that's 2 points for the Sharks right there. On Thursday, they'll be in Tampa Bay, and that one is another 7 p.m. or 4 p.m. Pacific game, 7 p.m. Eastern game. And yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning are third in the division right now with 12 wins, 9 losses, 2 overtime losses for 26 points. They're not the juggernaut they were a few years ago. They don't have the depth they had, but they do still have the big the scorers. Nikita Kucherov has 34 points in 22 games. He's still like probably the best player on the team. 12 goals, 22 assists. He's the driver right there. With him, you never know. He's just a really good player. He's on both sides of the ice, and if he sees red, he's also just a dangerous player to play against. He'll still score goals. He'll run you down. He's just a bull on the ice. So you got to be careful with trying to wake him up as a sleeping beast. Second place is Brandon Hagel. He has 10 goals, 19 assists, and 29 points. Now, I remember when Tampa Bay Lightning acquired Hagel and they paid a lot to get him. He didn't live up to the hype in the beginning, but it looks like right now he's second place in points, so he's actually kind of living up to all the trading and the contract he has. So he's doing very well for second place. Third place is Anthony Cirelli. He slotted in nicely as a second line center to which should be Braden Point or Jake Gensel, but I think that him and Gensel are probably switching back and forth who's on the center, because it looks like on here he's written as a C, but also Braden Point's a C, so I don't know who we're going to see on the center depth, to be honest. Braden Point is 6th with 21 points, 19 games, 16 goals, 5 assists, so he's the goal scoring guy you got to worry about. This team knows how to score goals, at least their top depth does. I think their problem is that their bottom 6 is not really good, but they're very top heavy, because if you look at their goals, they have 86 goals for the whole team, and Kucherov's got 12, Hagel's got 10, Cirelli's got 10, Gensel has 10, and Point's got 16. So this team can score goals. If you can shut these first two lines down, you should win the game. But knowing the Sharks, they kind of aren't really good at playing the whole 60 minutes. Even Warsofsky said he likes to roll 4 lines out there. To shut down these two guys, you're going to want to be more strategic on that and have a really good defensive forward group to shut down the Kucherov line and the second line as well. I would say the Sharks are probably going to lose this one because Tampa Bay is just a really, really good team. So yeah, I'm going to say 0 points for this one, for this game. Now finally, Saturday, the Sharks will play the Florida Panthers. A slightly earlier game. This is going to be 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. The Florida Panthers are first place in the division as we speak right now. They have, in 25 games, they have 15 wins, 9 losses, and 31 points. They're kind of playing a little bit back and forth with the Leafs of who's getting first place here. But they're a very good team. They have 92 goals for, 80 goals against. They're still running that confidence of being a Stanley Cup winning team. They have a couple of flops here and there. There was a kind of a cold streak they were on. As of last week, they weren't doing very well, but when they beat the Leafs 7-1, they won yesterday as well. They're starting to kind of figure out they have a nice 3-game win streak going on, so they're rolling, and by this time next week, they could be on a 5-game winning streak for all we know. So this is a team that you don't want to sleep on. They're very confident, very good. Sam Reinhart's still having another great season. He has 18 goals, 16 assists, 34 points in 25 games. He's obviously the big offensive dynamo you have to worry about shutting down. Alexander Barkov is another great player who was injured earlier this season, but he's back now. And he has 6 goals, 18 assists, 24 points. Another guy who has more assists than games played, which is wild. And he's just probably the best defensive center in the league right now. Now that Bergeron's retired, you could probably give him the award there. Celebrini might take that soon. just saying. Give a few years. But yeah, so Alexander Barkov is another great guy going to shut down, another great player. And Sam Bennett's third place with 23 points in 24 games, 12 goals and 11 assists. So he's another goal-scoring threat to worry about. As a first line right there, that's dangerous enough. But then you got Carter Verhaeghe, 7 goals, 13 assists, 20 points in 25 games. And we forgot about their spark plug that brings the whole team together. Matthew Tkachuk, who's 5th place with 19 points in 20 games, just below a point a game. And you would probably want to think, that's not really great player for someone who's paid so much and supposed to be such a big part of that team. But he does everything right. He's the attitude that makes this team so much better than it should be. especially considering the Florida Panthers years ago used to be considered like just an offensive team that was kind of soft. Once he joined this team, like the attitude completely changed. So with this kind of this player and this new attitude team, the Sharks should expect to be a very tough game. They're gonna probably want to roll maybe Giovanni Smith. Costin's gonna have to really put himself out there. I would even keep Cardwell out there to see how well he plays against this team, just because they're going to be very, very tough to play against. They're going to play physical. They're going to wear you down. And a team like the Sharks, who aren't as skilled as Florida and not as experienced as Florida, they're going to have a tough time. I'm going to predict a loss just because the Sharks, I don't think, are ready for this. It might be a goal-scoring gallery, just like the Sharks have been scoring a lot of goals, but I just think Florida is the better team, and they should come out away with the win. So my prediction for the week, 3 games, at least a little break for the Sharks, not having to play too many games this week. They'll actually have a day off between games. So I think Washington might get that win because I want to predict they'll get 1 win at least. So they'll get 2 points against Washington. They'll probably lose against Tampa. They'll probably lose against Florida. No shootout points, I don't think. I think they're going to get 2 points out of this 3-game road trip. And with this team, not a big deal. We're not expecting the Sharks to, go for a cup or contend for anything like that. But if they show any of these games, I think all 3 of these games, they can hold up against these teams, at least play a good 60 minutes, I consider that a win, and that they're very capable of doing that. And even if they're down 2-0 in the beginning of the game, if they're showing that, that adversity we're seeing throughout the whole season where they don't give up, they want to keep playing, and they're hungry to at least score a goal, that's a win for me. Because this team, we know, we're playing against 3 experienced teams that know how to win in the playoffs, especially Tampa and Florida, that, again, the Sharks just need to show they can keep up with these guys. And if they can do that, that's a win in my book. So, yeah, 2 points in 3 games, on away games and afternoon games, considering that the Sharks are not used to playing this early in the day. Although they did do a lot of it last month when they were away. But I think that the Sharks coming away with 2 points would be a win in my book. So, yeah. And that's going to do it for another week of the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. If you managed to listen throughout this whole podcast, I appreciate you. It was definitely a long one today. I really wanted to go to talk about how the Sharks scoring has been incredible and how it's improved over the last, this whole season up to this point. But yeah, if you liked what you heard, leave a like to the show or leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If there's something you want me to talk about, if there's something you want to see, you can reach out to me on YouTube or on Teal Teardown Hockey on Instagram. You can also reach out to me on X at Teal Teardown HKY. I'd love to hear from you, and I just appreciate you listening wherever you are, whatever you're listening from. I appreciate it, and yeah, that's it for me, and I'll see you next week.